Welcome back, everybody. You know, many of us think the holidays are a joyous time, but for some, they are dealing with the loss of a loved one, while others are struggling with depression. These are issues that can be resolved with the advice from a trained medical professional, but it could take some time to make sure they get the help they need. Here with more on what to do during the holidays if you fall into those groups is Dr. Rochelle Dunham from Metropolitan Human Services District. Happy holidays, doctor. Welcome back.
Happy holidays. Thank you.
Thank you so much for being here, and I'm so glad we're talking about this because, you know, before preparing for this interview, I was like, you know, holidays, it's always a great time, the movies, the music, the gifts, but it is true that some people are dealing with grief and depression. Let's start at the beginning. What are some of the warning signs people need to be on the lookout for if they are experiencing grief or depression during the holidays?
Yeah, it's not a whole lot different than what you would look for if you're not during the holidays. It's just the thing that confuses it is that you think, as you said, that everybody ought to be happy. So you look for some of the same things, people having more withdrawn, not involved, turning down invitations, for example, especially if they typically would come and be there. Difficulty with sleep, appetite, concentration, those kind of things people would have to tell you, though. But it's a lot of times you have to pay attention to people's behaviors, and changes in a person's typical or regular behavior is going to be the first sign in most cases that something is wrong mentally. And then if you probe further, you can ask questions like, well, how are you sleeping? How are you doing? Are you feeling sad? Are you feeling like this is a difficult time for you? You know, I would have thought you would be happier or bubblier. I would have thought I would have seen you more, but I'm not seeing you out in your usual circumstances.
Right.
So what's going on with you? So don't be afraid to ask, because a lot of times people are afraid. They feel like, you know, they're getting into someone's private space, and you are, but it could be life-saving. Imagine if the person's mind is centered around whether or not they should continue to be here or not.
And especially if you have that relationship with them, right? It is a coworker you consider your friend, or it is a family member, you know. It is important that we ask those questions because you're right, you know, there's still things going on. We're still in the middle of a pandemic. People have lost their loved ones. They're not at the dinner table this year. So it is important that we ask those questions. But for people who are dealing with it now, right, they already know that they are suffering from grief, they're suffering from depression. What are some coping mechanisms you suggest?
So not being alone is one thing. Not sitting still. Depression is one of those things that we say will almost engulf you if you're still for too long. So keep moving, keep busy, force yourself to do the extra. Don't sit on the minimum, because if you do that, then you're going to find yourself being more engulfed with it. If you need to talk to somebody, sometimes the best person to talk to is not a family member or a friend, because there are things that maybe you feel like if I tell them this, they're going to think differently about me, or they're not going to imagine that I would even have these kinds of thoughts. And what does that mean that I'm having these kinds of thoughts? So sometimes a professional conversation will do you more good, but then sometimes just talking to anybody who you trust, who has your best interest, is going to keep your information confidential and private. And that's the big deal with why professional help makes such a big deal. But a lot of times people don't have anybody in their immediacy that they can talk to. So that's why we have organizations like ours, Metropolitan, the 988 hotline, if you're thinking about suicide. But even if you're not, you're just having despairing moments, you're feeling heavy and weighted down, pick up the phone. The 988 number will have a neutral, trained person on the other end who can listen. Because a lot of times we need somebody to just listen. In the process of talking, we diffuse a lot of bad energy. We also sometimes work it out and figure it out as we think about it.
Come on, and it's nice that it's over the phone, because for some people it could be weird, right?
In front of somebody.
I'm telling a stranger, you know, my personal secrets and all of that, but because it's over the phone, there's hopefully a barrier there. And there's also a crisis hotline we want to let people know about. Let's talk a little bit about this crisis hotline. It is a community resource.
That's right. So at MHSD, we do have a crisis team ready and available 24/7, and that number on the screen, 504-826-2675, is the access to the crisis line. Now, most people think crisis, they're suicidal, they're going to hurt themselves, they're going to harm someone else. No, it doesn't have to be that. That's kind of like the end of the world. That's like, should I have you go to the hospital or not? Possibly. But sometimes it's just that I'm having a situation at the moment. My kids are really struggling. I'm struggling. I'm without. I don't have food. I don't have shelter. I am really having a difficult time. And I look around and people are happy. I'm not happy.
Right.
You know, something is wrong with me, right? forgetting that you weren't unhappy, you were unhappy before the holiday season. So it's important for people to take advantage of the fact that you have to own your own health.
Come on.
And so if you're gonna own it, you have to also be honest with yourself that if you don't feel good, you gotta take care of yourself. Nobody else is responsible for that but you.
It's so true, and a lot of times we focus on our physical health, right? Making sure we
Yes,
maintain weight,
we
making
do.
sure we look like this or that, but our mental health is just as
So
important
critical.
as our physical health. Before we go to break, doctor, I want to ask you this. If we know somebody who we see are struggling with this, have some of those signs of grief or depression, but they don't see it for themselves, what's one tip you can offer us as the concerned family member or spouse on how we can help them get the help they need?
Well, you know, that's a difficult one because it's one of the problems with working with people in our field is that many times people don't see it. And there's a technical term for that. They don't see it, and sometimes it really is a matter of you being persistent and being able to stay the course with them to help them see it and being willing to go with them. Sometimes if you go with me, I'll drive you. I'll wait outside or I'll be in the other room. But helping people, holding their hand and helping them take that next step.
It's so
going to be
important.
so important.
Come on, Dr.
Yeah.
Dunham. Some great advice this morning. Thank you so much for joining
You're
us this morning. And look, if you all want more information about the resources MHSD offers, or for more information about mental health in general, call them 504-568-3130 or visit the website on your screen.